Hello, hello. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Oh, like Katie's right here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My
Hi
name is
there.
Felipe. You are totally fine. We are just beginning the webinar. My name is Felipe here with the Charter for Compassion. We are so excited to welcome Katie Ornstein, our moderator for today's conversation, and our special guest, Dr. Janus Adams, with her book Sister Days, 365 Days 365 days, 365 moments in African American women's history. That's what it was. It wasn't days, it was moments. So we're super grateful to have you both here for this conversation. Welcome everyone that is joining us and attending through Zoom and also watching us on our social media platforms. We're currently live on YouTube and on Facebook. And this will later be uploaded to our YouTube channels for you to watch whenever it is possible for you. So, with that, I welcome you both, Katie and Janice, and so happy to be able to be here and to enjoy the conversation that is about to take place.
Thank you, Felipe.
Thank you so much. Well, Janice, where shall we begin?
Oh, Katie, we should always begin at the beginning. And our beginning goes back quite a way. Let's talk very briefly about your extraordinary organization, the Op-Ed Project, because in a way, that is what this is about today.
Well, when you say let's begin at the beginning, do you mean yours, mine, or ours?
Ours,
Okay,
all of
then
it.
our beginning it actually predates my organization. It was in my head. The organization was in my head. I was actively percolating it, but I met you in, if I'm not mistaken, 2007
Wow.
and at the Progressive Women's Voices of the
Yeah,
Women's Media
yeah.
Center, and they had a program called Progressive Women's Voices, and I believe they that we were one of the very first, maybe the second cohort of Progressive Women's Voices,
Exactly.
and
Exactly. And your organization, the Op-Ed Project, was in your head.
yes. This is really important to me because I remember meeting you and thinking that you were the both like the you were the person that I had imagined an organization like mine could be founded around
Oh my goodness.
because you had published many books. I'm not sure if you had published 10 books already, but you had published a lot of books already. And you told me at one point in time, you counted and told me you had written 500 columns and you had written about things that were like not unknown, but not like the daily mainstream fare, like things that were like important from a position of expertise, but not the things that most average class Americans were reading about all the time. And
Exactly.
when I yeah, I just remember like you like helped crystallize
Not only
the
was I
organization
writing,
in my mind.
not only was I writing about it, but I was reading about it. And so that is how I came upon an article that you wrote about Little Red Riding Hood. And so when we both give the title, please.
Well, the book, I don't know what the article is titled. The book is Little
Well,
Red Riding Hood Uncloaked: Sex, Morality, and the Evolution of a Fairy Tale.
that I came upon that an article about that book and then had to get the book. And then I'm at Progressive Women's Voices, and in walks the author of Little Red Riding Uncloaked. So indeed, in I did not know what you said about, having envisioned, but I already was just really taken by the work that you and others were doing that was clearing the space, getting rid of the cobwebs, opening up what we all needed to hear about ourselves, to cut through the denial and the lies and the obfuscation. And and in she walks. It,
That was such a different era. First of all, we were so young, and and it was so fun. I just want to take a moment. It's been a long time to just give such kudos to the Women's Media Center for
yes,
starting that and bringing so many people together. I don't know if they track the impact because it's very hard to track, but like our relationship and the things that we've done together, and certainly the things that we've done together through my organization, the Op-Ed Project, are an
exactly.
outgrowth of that meeting. And that meeting was made possible and intentionally made possible by the Women's Media Center bringing together like I think we had like 20 people or 15 people in
Yeah.
our cohort.
hmm
Yeah.
Gloria Steinem, Jane Fonda, Robin Morgan, and at that point, the executive director was Carol Jenkins.
The amazing Carol Jenkins,
Carol
another
Jenkins.
woman who like shaped like definitely
Mhm.
I watched her leadership and it shaped my thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and here
Um,
we are. So
I'm
that
trying
was
to
our
think like
self-compassion that we were
yeah, but I
striking
feel
out
like it's
on.
a good starting point for us. What brought you to the to into that? Like what were the activities and the purpose that brought you into that cohort, Janice?
Carol Jenkins said I was already on the board of the Women's Media Center. She had invited me to join the founding board, and I was. And then I did not think that being on the board that I would be able to join this wonderful progressive women's voices, which had it um, as its mission training women to fill in the gaps of what we were hearing in the public forum. At that point, and it's still not where it should be, but at that point, women were extremely underrepresented,
Yeah.
especially on the Sunday morning talk shows,
Hmm.
where policy was discussed and repercussions was discussed. And as a result, not only were women and African Americans and Indigenous and Asian and Latino people not included, um, as well as being gender and identity inclusive. None of that was included, and we're talking 2007, so we're not talking that long ago, 19 years ago. A teenager was today could have been alive at that point. So that's how recent it is in that sense.
It's not that you're making me feel so old, Janice. I I can give some statistics to that because that
Because
we
that's what
my
you did
organization,
with
the
the
Op-Ed
op-ed
Project,
project. Yeah.
was founded 1 year later, and those statistics were driving statistics for us. So, and the White House Project and the Women's Media Center did various studies, and I think the White House Project released a benchmarks report, they called it. So we really had a lot of data across
hmm
different forms of thought leadership and voice. I think it was somewhere close to 15% of Sunday morning talk show guests were identified as women at that time. I know I can't be more than a percentage point or two off,
hmm
but it was also true Congress,
Yep.
corporate boards were about 15%, and Fortune 500 CEOs at the time were less than 5%. The op-ed pages were 10 to 15% women. By the way, that like we also looked at leadership in academia, um, lots of different uh, lots of different forums. We actually have these statistics as part of our opening, sort of an opening statement about the op-ed project. So I can actually point you to all the citations, but the aggregated data that we used showed that women at that time were about 15% share of public voice, of expert voice, and voices of color overall across the forum. We looked at about 13%. So
I was
really anemic. It's
I
changed a
was
lot.
not enough
Not enough,
because the not
but still
enough,
like hope
you
in the
know, but
change.
it has changed. I'm going to put it in, you know, we talk about the numbers, and the numbers are extremely important, but to understand what the numbers mean, I'm going to put it in my own context, which is that when I was doing my column, I wrote a column for 16 years. And um, I was less than one of the less than five African Americans doing a column in any kind of a metropolitan newspaper. And in order to be one of those five, I had to not take a full salary that I was entitled to. I was paid as though I was just, casually submitting something, even though I was doing it every week. So the economic repercussions of all of this as well. When I first started at NPR, I was, um, I did like, I opened the New York bureau actually, but I was
I didn't
in
know
the
that.
DC headquarters for like a 2 week orientation. And one of the places that they took me for that orientation was Linda Wertheimer was my shepherd at that point, and she took me to Congress, which was her beat. And when we got to Congress, she pointed out to me how the men at a certain point were all leaving kind of casually one by one. She said where they're going is to the men's cloakroom, which the men's restroom. And I'm saying, like this, one right after the other, And she said, that's where they meet. That's where they caucus to decide what they're going to do. And at that point, not only were they caucusing in the men's cloakroom, but there was no women's restroom anywhere near the congressional floor.
And what year was this?
This was 19, oh, 1976.
See, I find this so hard to believe. So I'm a bit younger than you, but the gap is a really, really significant one. It's not like enormous, but enormous things happened. So I was born into a world where that I don't think that was the case in any of my experiences, but I learned only really later that right before I was born, all like for example, the college that I went to did not admit women
Exactly.
in the year in just a few years prior to my birth. But I grew up knowing it as a place that I could go to, and lots of other things like that. There was such a big and important shift in those years.
Hmm.
And like when I hear you, and at the age I am now, I think that shift didn't change all the realities, but it changed
No,
something important about like signaling, what was possible. I feel like a lot of people, you know, born like late 60s and 70s, like there were so many shifts for women that happened around them. Like I don't know about the bathrooms, but I'm imagining that was one of them, cloakroom bathrooms.
hmm,
But certainly admission to Ivy League schools, like divorce laws changed, marital like the possibility that there could be a rape committed within marriage, the ability. This one drives me crazy, Jess. The ability to get credit without permission from a man, that, what an unbelievable what an
I
unbelievable thought. And it was actually so recent, but just not in my reality.
it was an argument that my daughters had with me to prove that I was always exaggerating. When I said that the year that I married their father, I could not get credit in my own name. And they just exploded into, Mom, you
Yeah.
are always like by that by the time we had this argument, I had written quite a number of books of history, and it was on and on. And I finally had to tell them, I'm not going to do it for you. You look up the founding date of the first women's bank in New York, 57th Street. You look it up, 1975. They said, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah.
And And their thing was, you mean my mother, my grandmother, my powerful grandmother, and their grandmother was a formidable woman who anybody in and around New York has probably heard of Co-op City or in education as an educational park, which the Board of Ed in New York partnered with Harvard to create the nation's first educational park. And my mother was the executive director of that. And my mother had to not once again take a proper salary because the white teachers who objected to the fact that a Black woman was named to this post were told, don't worry, we didn't give her the salary that she was due. So they
That makes me so angry. I hope everyone's listening to this feels that too.
that's why I'm saying it, because it's time for us to speak about what why we had to have affirmative action, why we had to have DEI, why we had to have all these things, because this was the largesse under which we lived when we did not have it. At that same, at Harvard, to be upfront about it, excuse me, not only did we not have these things, but Harvard entered into this agreement. Harvard then comes up much later, of course, in the takedown of affirmative action, the attack on Harvard with the Asian students. And those Asian students were used. And the fix was already in because when that case went to the Supreme Court, they asked not one question. And I know that Ketanji Brown Jackson knew the question to ask that I'm going to put out. I knew that Justice Sotomayor knew the question to ask. Whether or not Clarence Thomas bothered to ask the question is a question. But the question was simply to those Asian students who were put in that position and used to say that affirmative action was discriminatory to them. What was the percentage of Asian students who were admitted to that school before Black people put their bodies on the line for school desegregation? And the answer is zero. So the idea that the whole country is manipulated to say that Blacks are causing the discrimination against Asian students. No. What was the percentage of Asian students, Latino students, um,
Mm, hmm.
indigenous students before Black people put their bodies on the line for school desegregation in America? And I'm one of the four children who
Yes,
were
and you're one of
segregated.
them.
Well, I'm not really including myself on the bodies on the line, but in truth, I am. Um, One of the
Why
four.
would you not include yourself there, Janice?
Well,
I've always in my mind, you're one of the, as a
yeah,
child, you were one of the kids who was part of desegregation in the
in the
Northeast
North,
corridor.
because and that's why kind of I don't. But I think I don't because I'm always and I am also the first person to hold a degree in Black Studies in the country, period.
Yeah, from the great Mills College.
Mills College, Katie, thank you very much.
Yeah, we got to give them a shout out.
Which has now been absorbed into Northeastern,
Hmm.
which no alumni is proud of. No shade to Northeastern, but shame that we could not keep one of the last women's colleges.
Yeah.
Um, and with buildings on the campus that were built by a woman architect, the same architect who built um,
I don't know this. I can't help you
the
on this one.
yes. All of a sudden, I'm skipping on her name, but it'll come back to me. That extraordinary home that's right on PCH that the man who upon whom Citizen Kane is based. I'm just throwing out all the things. The publisher who it's all based, who that movie is based on. Someone do a quick, um,
Julia Morgan? Are you thinking Julia Morgan?
well, Morgan is, I'll come to her name. So that might be it, but someone will pull it up. But anyway, she's the architect
She was
who,
California's first licensed female architect.
yes, yes, she built it, and she also built that extraordinary estate that she designed, that extraordinary estate that was not preserved as a preserve of women's history as it should have been. That's our objection to it. But
Yeah.
but I went in that direction because from my experience, you asked why I do or do not, consider. Yes, I'm one of the. It is insane that an 8-year-old, soon to turn 9, was in the position, or 4, 8, and 9-year-olds were in the position to do to exhibit the courage that adults could not bother to muster. And that, yes, that I am. But I'm always reluctant to, I am beginning to say first these days in a way. Thank you, Marilyn. Julia Morgan, thank you. Um, and I'm always reluctant to say first this and first that, mostly because I know that for a person of my age, I could not possibly be the first person qualified or available. So, what I really represent in my mind is the last time others were able to do what they were doing in terms of destroying other people's lives cavalierly for their own gain, and being able to get away with it without saying anything, without it being noticed. So, I represent the
Janice,
last time it could be taken for granted that you could deny someone. That's what I represent in
oh,
my
I see what
mind.
you're saying. But I wanted to pause at your comment that you didn't represent the most qualified like
No, I
is
can't be
that
the
did I hear you say
first
that?
person. What I said is that I
Oh,
could
you
not
can't be the first.
possibly
Yeah.
be the first person to be qualified. There's no way.
But nor are you. I mean, I want to hear what you say about this, but in my mind, nor is it an accident or happenstance that it's you. I mean, you are repeatedly at places of intersection in his key historical moments, and your voice is always there. It's I think that there might be like there you might not be the first, or there might be other people, but you are consistently there speaking out and playing a role at a rate that would be impossible to say is accidental. Would you agree with that?
I'll say thank you to that. Because of the school desegregation experience, when I was 10 years old, I was introduced to Dr. King. And my cousin and I, and 2 others, are the ones who desegregated the schools. My cousin and I. Someone, if you'll also put in the chat, Ted Landsmark, not in the chat, but um, pull up the image of Ted Landsmark, Boston City Hall. Um, this Pulitzer Prize winning photo of him, which is critical, will come up, and then I'll ask Felipe if he will share it. But Ted and I were introduced to Dr. King when I was 10. Ted was about to turn 11, I think. And when I met Dr. King, what I remember is a conversation that he turned very personal. And he asked me, "What are you doing for our people?" So someone clearly had told him this was a child who was involved in something. And I told him that had been part of the school desegregation process. And he told me that what I had done was important. And that's it, the soiling of old glory. And if that picture can be brought up, it is really important, to what I'm saying now. Um, that's it. That's my cousin Ted. And he was the person who was stabbed in the face with the eagle of the American flag on Boston City Hall steps, and I believe it is 1976, 1975, 1976. He was a young attorney on his way to a meeting for the Black contractors whom he represented when these Louise Day Hicks demonstrators, anti-busing demonstrators, literally saw him on crossing the plaza, said, "There's the nigger, get him." And that's the Stanley Foreman, happened to be on the plaza that day, the Boston Herald photographer. And that was the picture that he took of Ted, which won a Pulitzer Prize. Um, that picture is obviously it's so powerful that my daughters told me just a couple of years ago they remembered that I had a book of Pulitzer Prize winning photos. We had an extensive library. They remembered not only the book but where it was on the shelf. And when they told me they remembered, I knew how I had sectioned our library throughout the house. So I knew that they absolutely remembered it. And as adults, they told me they did not go to that section of the of our family library because of that book. That was the power of that image that was still contaminating my daughter's lives, as
Yeah.
little people, to see their family member in that position. And then there are later photos of him with the bandaging and everything else. Um,
Yeah.
but this is what we're talking about in when we talk about all of this. This is, I'll finish the Dr. King story and then I'll come back. So I Dr. King then recognizes that, we're going through all of this, and he said to me, "And what are you doing?" And I told him the school desegregation. He told me that it was important. He then realized that I was a little withdrawn. I was in awe of him because I absolutely knew who he was. I had been
How old were you?
10,
10.
and we had been following I mean, this was right after the Montgomery bus boycott. Um, he is he is newly returned from the wars. He is in New York to speak about it. When I was going through what we went through in our school, I had a woman who spat on me and tore my dress, and then I had to sit like that in school all day long. In fact, they sent me to the school cafeteria at one point to sit all alone, just waiting for somebody to come for me. It was that kind of a lack of charter for compassion. It was that kind of lack of compassion, but that kind of lack of human fiber and character that we were talking about at that period of time. And so Dr. King tells me he'll make a bargain with me, or he'll make a deal. And the deal is that he says that if I keep doing what I'm doing so that no other children will have to suffer what I suffered, he will keep doing so that for our people, what they what he needs to do so our people do not continue to suffer. And these days I say straight up, Dr. King didn't lie to me. America lied to me, and America lied to itself because it said that it had. Now we know America's founding was horrific. It's based in genocide and based in transatlantic slave trade, human trafficking. At its very, that is the founding of America. But it then
Yeah.
professed other goals and values, and it lied in terms of its own values. We are about to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the founding document to which
Yeah.
it's lying. Okay, that picture of Ted is, you know, decades later. What happened to
Well,
my daughters is decades after that, where they are still traumatized by something that they knew from childhood. These things do not go away.
yeah. Janice, can I just take a moment to, I just want to, first of all, the exchange that you just shared, with Martin Luther King. First of all, what a great thing to say to a 10-year-old. Like, what a great promise to make to a 10-year-old. But I also want to say for you, I want to just, because I think it's possible to hear that story and not understand what's so exceptional about you, because there are so many stories that are told, like the story you told of that horrible encounter at your school, which is a horrible story. And I think everyone, we all, I just want to say, like, nobody should have to experience that, let alone a 10-year-old girl ever, ever, anywhere. But isn't it extraordinary what you became and how you processed whatever you did to process those experiences in a way that became um, fuel for a better future for other people, to make a better world for people who came next. So instead, like I talk a lot about at the Op-Ed Project, we talk a lot about like a common thing that happens in narrative, which is a triangle: victim, villain, rescuer. And it's not a good triangle for anyone.
Yeah.
And the constant endeavor is to shift the triangle, or to shift the mode of interaction into something else, which I call like the challenge, the protagonist, and potentially like the coach or Obi-Wan Kenobi figure, which is what it sounds like Martin Luther King did for you, but you squarely in the protagonist seat. Like what it's something that's so exceptional about you, because you have come through so many different like really key like eras and moments. You've been present in or adjacent to really critical moments in history, and then you've come through them, and you are a columnist, an author, a creative, an entrepreneur, a mentor. You're also like, I don't know if you would describe yourself as optimist, but I just want to say, like, my experience of you is of a person who's constantly projecting a positive future. And I want to know, is there, what makes you like that? Are there any key moments? Is there anything that has been an influence on you, that's shaped you to be that way? Would you agree that you are that way?
Well, I'll bypass that question for the for that part of the question for the moment, but I would say that uh, thank you though. But I want to make a different kind of an answer
Hmm.
that isn't about me, and I'm not saying it to be uh, humble or humility. It's not the time for that. I'm saying it to be
Hmm.
realistic. None of us gets to be whatever we are, especially those of us who have some kind of a public platform. Who, yes, I am an author. Yes, I am a historian. I've been on television for all these years. Nobody gets to do that without those other people who don't have the forward facing experience, the public
Hmm.
facing experience. And so when you say it's amazing what you've become, I just feel bound to say it's amazing what any of us has become if we have in any way survived the atrocity of American racism, of sexism, all the other isms that are being that we are being groomed to accept now as we speak. Um, any of us. And so the person who is working three jobs to still not make ends meet when another person could simply play them fairly and they would not go through that struggle is something
Hmm.
that is key. And so that person who's working those three jobs to still not earn what they should earn. If if a job is worth doing, it's a job that should be paid for, as though the life that's doing it matters. It should not be the source of exploitation, an easy, cheap way to exploit someone and get over. That to me says a lot about the people who do that. But the people who go through it, I don't want to ignore that they're the ones who make it possible for all of us, anybody who's even on this call. They're the ones who are making it possible for us to be here. And so that is, and I mean it, it's not it's not, it's what it is. And I'm really sick of us not being, reminding each other and ourselves to deal with what it is. It is. And right now, we're talking about a nurse who was murdered by a mob empowered by the government.
Hmm.
We are being groomed to see state sponsored terror and not call it out and see it for
Hmm.
what it is.
Yeah.
I am a victim when the police attacked us on our way to the March on Washington. Excuse me. I don't want to say the police did not attack us. Let me correct what I'm about to say. When our bus was on the way from New York to the March on Washington and a mob attacked us at the Mason-Dixon line to prevent us from going in, we could see the state troopers standing back and letting it happen. State troopers who were earning a salary that day not to be state, not to do what they were supposed to technically do, but what they were told they should do, which
Hmm.
was to not protect Black people. The Supreme Court has said when it decided Plessy versus Ferguson that a black and the Dred Scott decision, a black man has no rights a white man is bound to respect. That is state-sponsored terrorism, and it unleashed that. So I don't want to ignore that. I won't say that I am an optimist in that sense, but what I am saying is that I am a determinist. I am determined that every day I have to be cognizant in as much of a 360 view as I can be to the things that make my day possible,
Hmm.
um, even when my day is awful.
Yeah.
Um, and these days, there are getting to be a lot of awful days. Some vicarious, some, personalized. I've been had my speaking engagements canceled, which isn't just a
Hmm.
speaking engagement. It means that an author, historian, journalist is being denied the right to earn a living. That's what it means. So
Yeah.
these are the things that sometimes our words and our imagery can get in the way of just being real. And when you have a
Hmm.
nurse whose first instinct, even we now got the news
Yeah.
yesterday that he had been attacked by ICE before, either ICE or one of that group, but definitely not the Minnesota or Minneapolis police. That's the law enforcement that did not step up. But the federal, some part of that federal configuration had attacked him a week before and given him a broken rib. And in that pain, when he comes upon another demonstration and is reaching out to help somebody, that's his instinct as a nurse. And someone called him a terrorist for that, obviously without a shred of
Yeah.
research or curiosity. I'm not even talking about investigation, just curiosity. No, it was propaganda. And this is the terrifying time that we are going. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
with that, I'm going to read from the
Well,
introduction to my book.
yeah, no, I want to hear that. I want to just take a moment to absorb some of what you've done, which is for at least for me, which is like suddenly like telescoped time or collapsed like a feel like a historic like a long ago historical era to what's happening today. And and also what you've described as the impact, on citizens and also on you as a person, as an author, as a speaker. And we're definitely experiencing that too in our community at the Op-Ed Project. We've also had like a very challenging year with partnerships, with our own funding, but above all with voice and the risk of voice. Voice is
Mhm.
not just words. Voice is also action. So
It's action.
the man that you're describing in Minneapolis is exerting voice with his actions,
Mhm.
and the risk, and the disproportionate
Schiptretti.
risk
Schiptretti.
is yeah, it's traumatizing. It's I've been like many people watching with horror as the things that we thought were sacrosanct are so quickly knocked over.
I want to just
Um,
say I'm watching in horror because when you talk about whether or not we put our bodies on the line, yes, I have been in a police raid. And these are the things that we fought to never have happen again. So in my lifetime, for me to see this coming back with such ferocity and
yeah,
callousness is terrifying.
yeah. So I have such a different background and experience, but you know this that I spent like a good 10 years of my life working in and on and living in and around in Haiti during a time of it's like that again now, but in a very violent era. Um
And we cannot ignore the
and a
fact
lot
that,
of my adult life was shaped from
yeah,
watching what happens, like risk, disproportionate risk, my relative protections, like an increasing awareness of that, but also the risk of not taking risks. We have you know this, we have a slogan that we all live by at the Op-Ed Project, which is if you say things of consequence, there may be consequences. And the alternative is to be inconsequential.
yes.
And I feel like it's not to make light of any of this, but to understand that there's also a consequence to doing nothing, to sitting back. Um, it feels very urgent right now. Um, yeah. You want to read? Do you want to
Well,
read from
I,
your
I,
book?
not to be dismissive, but I thought that in every night before I go to bed, um, I have developed a practice of of cataloging a moment for joy that I would have had during the day. And which means that all day long, I have to make sure I inject a moment of joy into the day. And so I decided, yes, I reached out to read, not to negate what we've been talking about because we need to talk about it. But I decided to read from the introduction and then hopefully we can take a few questions. Um, because in the midst of all of this, I'm going to inject a moment of joy. And this is reading from my book, Sister Days, which this global
Hmm.
reads. Thank you so much for having me. And we'll talk, I think, about the project that I'm working on now, the Harriet Tubman's A Way Out of No Way Day. And so people who join that program, and I urge you to check into it because it is about today. It is about the people who've been laid off. It is about giving agency to helping ourselves and each other. But to begin, in the beginning, the story is told. This is how things came to be. The who was who and what was what between man and woman. What the gods had given man, the gods had given woman. What he could do, she could do. What he had in knowledge and strength, she had too. Everything was even, for that was God's plan. Then one day the two got into a terrible row. Maybe it was that snake in the grass thing again when the gods called man to account and he blamed woman for tempting him with her apple pie. Maybe it was something like that. But whatever it was, it went on so long that man finally walked out, slammed the garden gate, and headed up to heaven to have a talk with God. There's got to be a way to put an end to all this commotion, man said to himself. And all the while he's walking, he's talking to himself. He's remembering the good times when he, man, was in charge of everything and woman was just a rib. Well, by the time he got to heaven, he knew what he wanted. Man walked right up to the God's council and stated his case. He said, God, I've got a woman down there. He said, God, grant me strength to deal with that woman. And God did. God gave man more strength. He knew what was going on. He had given equally to both, but there was something about that woman that made that creating and sun rising and moon making a whole lot of fun. But business was business. With his extra strength, man could also better tend the field and the flock. So it was done, and man was ecstatic. He raced home to tell woman that he was boss now, and with his strength, he was king. Roar. Well, as you can imagine, woman was having none of that. Night and day, she said, day and night, I worked my fingers to the bone, ruining my manicure. I'll give that manicure. He's the one gets the strength. No, 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 no. Time for a talk with God. Her God wouldn't do a thing like that. And wasn't her God a woman? Well, out the garden gate she sped, and up to heaven she went, just like that. Before she knew it, she was there. For once woman made up her mind to do a thing, the thing got done. Now she had heard that just before she got to heaven, she could freshen up a bit at the pearly gates. So she would stop off to do that, shake off the dust from her feet, that sort of thing out of respect. Well, there at the gate she spied a set of golden keys, exquisite in construct, stunning in simplicity, ageless in design. But this was no time to admire the decor. At heaven's gate, she turned right and found the gods waiting for her. Now, from what man had said, they knew that she would come round in her own time. And she did. Now, God, she said, with all you've given me, I hate to trouble you, but God, whatever that was you gave my man, you need to give him a little less. But God said no. A gift is a gift. You don't take it back. They could give her more strength too, but keeping man and woman even in all things just hadn't worked out according to plan. Well, she thought and they thought. They thought and she thought. Then she remembered the keys at the gate. So you saw the keys to the kingdom, they smiled, all knowing. She could have them if she liked. They knew greater wisdom was a gift she would use well. So thankful, she said her praises and rushed home to man. He had his strength for sure, but she had greater wisdom. This is fact, people. This is fact. And that's why things are the way they are to this day. Man holds up his end of the bargain, but woman holds the power. So it was told by our mothers' mothers, and so it is to this day true. Women hold the keys to the kingdom. In her wisdom, the great mother has passed on her stories, and from them our history has come. And so it
I
is, as a
love that,
journalist, I
Janice.
give you pure fact.
I love how you have like reframed that story for us. I also love how you turned the apple into apple pie. I didn't know you were going to read that, and I was wondering what you were going to read, and I just had a flashback to when I visited you up near Woodstock, and it was. Do you remember? It was Juneteenth, the day I think it was.
Yes,
That was the day I
yes, it
visited,
was.
and I had your book with me, and I don't remember if I did it with you or on the way home, but I opened it because I was like, I know Janice has an entry and sure for Juneteenth in there, and sure enough, there it was, and I was like with Janice on Juneteenth, reading Janice
There is
Juneteenth
an
essay.
entry for every single day of the year, including leap year. And Juneteenth, I happen to remember without looking in the book, is interesting because it was Oprah Winfrey getting the privilege
Mhm.
of having her first movie done. Toni Morrison's Beloved is the filming of it, and of course,
Mhm.
Beloved is Tony's answer to why she said there wasn't, she said, there's no monument in this country that honors the people who were enslaved in any way at the time that she wrote Beloved. Thank goodness something has been done since. But she said, there is no place you or I can go. There is not even a bench by the road. And so she said, because there was no book that even spoke to things the way she felt it should be, she had to write it. And so Juneteenth and Sister Days
Yeah.
is that story.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
Everyone read it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sister Days, not just beloved.
Sister Days, thank you. Sister Days, and Sister Days being the story across about 1,500 years of the the history of African American women. Yes, there are the names that you've heard of. You know, you can recite them in your own mind, but there are also the names of the people you've never heard of. There are the stories of people whose names we don't even know, but whose memories. Um, we're coming up, I'll tell this story very quickly. We are coming up on Black History Month. February 7th marks the centennial of the origin story of Black History Month, which is Negro History Week. It was created
Oh,
February 7th, 1926, is when it was announced by Carter G. Woodson, and he would host it the following week. Now, the following week, he chose for two, in honor of two birthdays, Abraham Lincoln on the 12th and Frederick Douglass on the 14th. Now, Frederick Douglass on the 14th becomes a really? Since Frederick Douglass did not know his birthday. But Frederick Douglass's birthday is celebrated February 14th, 1818 is the year he cites. How does he come up with that date? He could not ask his mother because she had been sold away from him when he was only 5. He could not ask his father because his father was one of the slave traffickers he escaped from, his so called owner. But he remembered being told that he'd been born in the kind of late to mid late teens, and so he chose 1818 as his birth year. How he chose February 14th as his birth date, which is why I'm telling this story, is because
Hmm.
in the little time his mother, Harriet Bailey, had with him, she so enveloped him in her her love that he remembered as a grown man when he needed a birthday that she always called him her little Valentine. And from that, he decided to name his birthday, uh,
Huh.
to cite his birthday, February 14th. So when we are, in spite of all that you will hear about Black History Month, when we are celebrating Black History Month, we are celebrating one man born in a log cabin and certainly not destined to be president from all outward appearances, and who is killed because he stood up late to his life and late in the country. 246 years of enslavement, he stood up to the slaveocracy. And we are also telling the story of a mother's love and the love of mothers across the millennia who have raised their children to do the impossible. And that's Frederick Douglass's mother. So I leave you with that.
Thank you so much for that, Janice. I did not know that. I know we're at the top, and I think Felipe, we're going to turn it back to you. But what I want to say is, this was so fast. This went by so fast, and we talked a lot about history, some of your personal history, but like the tiniest grain of who you are, and a completely. I just want to say, like you have such a cultural presence in it, like for me too, and a whole different conversation. I want to hear about I want to have that. Well, you and I've had that conversation many times, but I would like to have it on the record sometime. It's a completely, completely different way into your background.
Thank you, dear friend.
And thank you both for an amazing conversation. We're celebrating the 40 Days of Peace, that is programming of the Charter for Compassion that celebrates and honors the history and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I don't think there's any more like this is so fitting. This is so perfect to everything that we are trying to strive to communicate and expand as much as possible this message to other people. So thank you both for this incredible conversation. Before everyone goes, I wanted to share something really quick. I'm putting a link right there on the chat so that everyone can access this, but let me just share my screen really quickly. This is our link tree. It has all the different links and important things that are happening right now. We have our website and the upcoming events. You can always visit our website, charterforcompassion.org. And if you go down here, you can see all the different things that are going on, or you can click on the event calendar and it will take you to the same thing. I wanted to mention that our podcast, With Compassion, our friend Janus Adams here as well, was our last guest. Jennifer Nadel from Compassion in Politics interviewed her and had an incredible conversation. So this is already available in all podcast platforms, so that you can listen to it if you are craving more Janus Adams like we all are. And then more importantly, we wanted to make sure that people know about Harriet Tubman's A Way Out of No Way Day. 7 steps, 7 weeks. This is a program that Dr. Janus Adams is going to be doing. It begins on February 3rd, 2026 at 7:30, and it will go for 7 weeks. Dr. Janus Adams, would you like to tell us anything about this before we close?
Oh, I just want to say how thankful I am that I've been given the calling and the opportunity to do this. Right now, we have it within the first 6 months of 2025, more than 319,000 women disproportionately Black were pushed out of the federal government. That number is now estimated to be close to a million in terms of men and women disproportionately put out. And I recognize that in the midst of all of this, we have to still find ways to make a living and a life for our friends and others. And I won't go into the details now, it's right on the website. But in one extraordinary burst of creativity and conscience and thank you, cultural awareness, chutzpah. Yes. Uh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
um, uh, she decided that she would do something not just for herself but for others as well to with no money in 7 weeks a property was going to come up on the market and she would have it. And the question is, how did she do it? When I told my daughter the story, she said, Mom, if she could do that then, we could do it now. And I have created Harriet Tubman's A Way Out of No Way Day, so we can make a way out of no way for ourselves right now. Those people who need it. If you don't need it, um, we are asking just to make a donation to it, and it's not live yet. I wish it had been. We had to wait, but it's now officially a tax deductible donation that can be made to it. Just anything to make sure that someone who needs it, who otherwise could not attend, will be able to attend. We're going to match it dollar for dollar. So I
Beautiful.
thank you for that.
Beautiful, beautiful. And thank you so much, Janice, for everything. And I just want to say a little spoiler alert. We have the one of the guests for your, for this incredible project, this program, is Rita Daniels, who is the great, great,
Yes,
great grandniece of Harriet
yes,
Tubman.
yes.
I mean, what? That's wild. So,
That's when I
That
knew that
is
I was
amazing.
supposed to do this. When it came together that her great 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 grandniece was actually going to join the program, it's okay. I had to say, okay, universe, Katie, to your point about optimism, I don't know, possibility, potential, universe, compassion, knowing, love.
amen. Thank you so much both again for this conversation. Thank you for everyone else that's watching. This will be on our YouTube channel later on as we upload it. And again, we'll be seeing you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.